Let's start the show.
Welcome. Yo, what is up, guys? It is the Triangle Defense Podcast, and for the first time in the history of the podcast, Alex, we are podcasting about regular season NBA basketball.
Man, we talked about the games last episode.
Oh, you're right. Okay. Besides opening night, a full week, we got about a half a week of NBA basketball in. And some stuff happened. A lot
of stuff happened over these last few days. And we're actually introducing a new format to the podcast as well, too. We'll kind of go over that in a second, So John and I are going to each come with three different three-pointers that we're coming with for the week. So just three things that really stood out to us from the games, because we don't think we're going to do an in-depth analysis of every game. There wasn't too much to talk about between, the Bulls and the Pistons, So, we're going to take three-pointers from, like I said, from the entire week of the NBA and just talk about things that stood out to us. Going to talk about a few miscellaneous things, little things that might have happened throughout the week. Maybe not entirely game-related, but, stuff on NBA Twitter or backstage stuff, anything like that goes on. And then we're going to have a closing big topic today as well, too. That topic is going to be going over the snubs from the NBA 75th list. I have a lot that I want to talk about for that one, so this will be interesting. But I think you said that you have something you wanted to talk about to open the show, too, so let's hear it.
Yeah, before we go into the intro, I want to say that we're doing, in addition to this new format for the regular season, we're going to be doing regular podcasts Sunday and Wednesday, around there. It might be Thursday morning, might be something like that, but we're going to try to shoot Sunday, Wednesday. That'll be more uniform once the NCAA season ramps up so that we can cover the Super Tuesday games as well as the weekend NBA games.
Mm-hmm.
But look for our episodes Sunday and Wednesday, Wednesday night, Sunday during the day, sometimes at night. But that's going to be a regular thing. So if you're looking for the Triangle Defense, you know where to find us Sundays and Wednesdays.
Exactly. And like he said, it might get pushed back to Thursday. It might get pushed back to Sunday.
But we'll try to keep it consistent.
We'll keep it consistent to two episodes a week. But go ahead and give us your intro topic, John.
Yeah. I was thinking about this this week, watching a lot of NBA games, and I was thinking, Alex, if you have one, what is your favorite NBA commentator of all time? Play-by-play guy, color guy. I think I have an answer that's a bit controversial, I guess.
I want to hear yours first.
Okay. I am in the vast minority, I think, when I say that I liked Marv Albert.
What did you like about him?
Well, the last few years he was trash. He was senile, pretty terrible. But he is, if you go back and watch Jordan's old games, you go back and watch the Knicks with Patrick Ewing, you go back and watch pretty much any highlight before 2010 when Kevin Harlan and Ian Eagle started taking over. It's all Marv Albert. His calls are just iconic at this point. His trademark, a player takes a shot. The Reggie Miller, yes.
Right, yeah.
Pretty iconic. And just his voice and everything he brought. Obviously, the last couple of seasons, he was pretty bad. He would call players the wrong names, and he would say weird things he'd call three-pointers when the guy was inside the paint. But, today it would probably be Kevin Harlan maybe. But
I was gonna say I do like Kevin Harlan, and another one I have a controversial one that I actually do enjoy as well too. I kind of do like Reggie Miller.
Oh wow, that is controversial because he's gotten better. He used to be pretty cringy.
Right.
When he said he gave Steph the Stephster nickname. Infamously.
Yeah, exactly. I think just based off of his improvement, because it used to be I hated listening to him, and it was the same thing with Chris Webber too. But now I
still don't like. Yeah.
Now I don't necessarily hate listening to Reggie Miller, but that's controversial. But I'm gonna have to go with Mike Breen.
Yeah, I mean that you can't.
I mean that's the simple one. like I'd say Reggie Miller was more of kind of like like I said, controversial. I don't love him or anything like that, but it's gotten to the point where I'm not like, I don't want to turn the TV off when I hear him. But I mean, Mike Breen, 100%. There's no replacing what he does.
Especially in the last decade, all the iconic calls, the Curry from half court,
right.
Have a timeout, decides not to use it, blocked by James.
Yeah, I was going to say
Kyrie Irving from downtown, like all the iconic moments that have happened in the finals and the playoffs the last couple of years.
Exactly.
It's all Mike Breen. Yeah,
he did the Ray Allen one too, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
yes, he did. That was one of the original. That was one of the best bangs of all time.
Oh, I'd probably say the best.
Yeah, rebound, Bosch back out to Allen. His 3-pointer bang. I know like the exact cadence and everything to it. It's iconic.
So I think it's a pretty easy one. I'm gonna go with Mike Breen on that one, and then other ones. I mean, I don't mind Mark Jackson. He says some interesting things.
He covers the Warriors. He does the Warriors games a lot, and there's always, ever since he got, there's been like a hint of like saltiness over the Warriors. Yeah, which was forever ago.
Who said was he the second cousin one that was talking about that?
That was Jeff Van Gundy.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeff Van Gundy Jeff Van Gundy is unique in a weird way because he's interesting, but he treats NBA games like a podcast.
Right.
He just he'll go on a tangent. Like, I think it was like a Rockets game. They were like middle of the third quarter, and he just asked like, "What's a second cousin?"
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. He's like, "What are you allowed to do with a second cousin?" And we're like,
totally unprovoked, and there was not a single thing on the court that like provoked it in any way. He just like ran on a rant about like second cousins and if it's like legal to marry them and like the morality of it.
That was concerning, but speaking of concerning, didn't Bill Walton get into something too, talking about like being? Well, was it Bill Walton?
What does Bill Walton not get into?
Yeah, I mean, he was talking about like being depressed or something, like on like during a broadcast or something.
I wouldn't be surprised. I like Bill Walton. Bill Walton's like the specialty guy. He's like a closer in baseball or something. He comes in NCAA games. If there's a boring Pac-12 game like Washington, Stanford at like midnight or whatever,
right?
But it's Bill Walton on the call. Like,
exactly.
Like, he's going to talk about like some bike path that he biked or like like some seafood in Portland or something, and then just
100%.
The game finishes like 55-52 because the Pac-12 at midnight sucks. But
But all right, then moving into let's get into there. I mean, I think it's unanimous. It's Mike Breen. I think
no one's more iconic these days.
100%. But moving into our 3-pointers for this week too. Did you want to start this off, or do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I'll start us off with some NBA violence this week. The NBA got physical. Dwight Howard and Anthony Davis, coincidentally, right after the top 75 list came out. We'll talk about that later. But Dwight and AD were not happy, and they got physical on the bench. What is your take on them physically shoving each other and fighting?
So I was at a bar with my roommate watching that, and we were kind of just talking, whatever. And then we looked up because we were watching the game. But I mean, there was a point where the Lakers were losing by like almost 30 or whatever like that. So at that point we were kind of starting to tune out. We just look over and we see Dwight and we see Anthony Davis, like people getting separated. And I thought it was like Anthony Davis and a player on the Suns or like a fan did something to Anthony Davis. And I look up and it's him and Dwight Howard pulled apart. And we looked at each other. We went to Twitter immediately. We're like, well, what the? Because he was just like, he's like, I'm pretty sure that's Anthony Davis and Dwight Howard. And I was like, I was just like trying to look, and I didn't know what happened or what led to it or anything. But they showed the clip of them arguing beforehand. Yeah. And I don't think it's a good look for this Lakers team. I think you're
not alone.
No.
Magic Johnson had a tweet about this altercation. He said, Magic Johnson tweeted that night, Dwight Howard and AD got into a physical altercation on the bench. In my 42 years of being associated with the Lakers organization, I've never seen something like that, SMH.
Yeah, I was going to say the fact that Dwight Howard said not Dwight Howard, Magic Johnson said SMH. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I like that. But
No, I don't think I do.
I definitely don't think that's a good look for the second game of the season. I mean, it's going to be a long one, with these guys, and I'm not entirely sure what led into it. I want to say, I think I saw a Skip Bayless report saying that Dwight said something to Anthony Davis, because like Anthony Davis mentioned something about Dwight not playing good, and he was like, "Well, he's like, at least I'm actually playing hard."
Ooh,
And
okay.
that was the report that I saw. I'm not sure.
Right.
Who the source was. I mean, I'm pretty sure I saw it from Skip Bayless, but I don't know who the source was or how much truth there was behind that. But yeah, I mean, obviously it kind of pissed Anthony Davis off, and they had to, break these guys up. I mean, I think if there's another altercation like that between the two, Dwight's gone by the deadline.
It's weird because you think like, okay, so Dwight Howard wasn't on the team last season, so like they have chemistry to build, but he was on the team when they won the title. So like, it's not like they're like, oh, maybe they hate each other and the front office didn't know and they put them together. No, they won a title together, and they had maybe they didn't like each other back then, but like they weren't fighting each other on the bench.
No, I never heard a report of tension between Anthony Davis and Dwight Howard. I really do just think it was maybe an overreaction by Anthony Davis because he was the one that pushed Dwight first.
Right. Yeah, he was the aggressor.
Which I didn't see that coming or happening or anything like that. But not a good look, and not something that this team needs right now either. I mean, they're 0-2, and
they got smacked both games.
Because that's what I was saying too, is that the end box score of that game does not show how big of a blowout.
No, they got beat up bad.
Yeah,
like it
bad.
was not only not trying on defense, but wasn't getting back on offense.
Right. Yeah.
It was that bad. Closing remarks on this. I leave you with a question. How many seconds does Dwight Howard last in the ring with Tyson Fury? Right now they fight.
With Tyson Fury?
Tyson Fury, yeah. Dwight Howard has about the same weight and about 3 inches on him. Probably has the reach too.
I'd probably give him like a round.
A round? You give him a full round?
Probably. I mean, I definitely think Dwight is stronger than Tyson Fury.
Probably, yeah. Probably not.
I mean, Tyson
he's
Fury,
not a boxer, obviously, but
he's a little doughy, but
yeah.
I mean, obviously he has some punching power, but
yeah.
I don't know. I'd probably give Dwight a full round just based off of. I mean, it's interesting too because like basketball shape and boxing shape is
and I think Dwight's kind of soft,
too.
According to Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, apparently, yeah, and somebody else has called him soft too, but yeah,
everyone
I mean,
in the Rockets organization.
I'd maybe give him like a round, probably maybe, yeah.
Okay.
But moving on to my first pointer on this too. So I had the Hornets going into this season as the 13 seed in the East. I had them missing the play, even though I had them even missing the play-in. Do you think I underrated them just based off of these first 2 games? Or do you think it's just 2 games and not to look into it that much?
I mean, they're around the 13th best team in the East, I think. Like, if they ended up 13, I wouldn't be like surprised. I'm predicting them to be like 10 through 13, that range. Yeah. So like not too far off from 13. I don't think you underrated them per se. They do look pretty good, and obviously the engine for that is LaMelo Ball.
Oh yeah, but the other thing too is everybody else is playing their part. I mean, just some notes that I took down from watching the game. Gordon Hayward had 27 in the first game and 18 in this last one. Bridges just had a 30-point game. Kelly Oubre had 25 points. I don't expect those guys to keep scoring at that volume the entire season. But like you said, just anchored by LaMelo, I think there's a possibility that I underrated this team. Like they could be like even sitting at like the 8th seed, But I had them missing the play-in completely.
They played the Pacers and the Cavs. Pacers are a good team. Cavs, their strength is in the front court, I'd say. When we're talking about backcourt, they really don't have anyone that can defend anyone.
No.
But that's not to say that, I mean, they beat the Hawks yesterday.
Right.
They have some talent, so it's not like, they're trash.
And then the other thing too is they played the Pacers without TJ Warren and Karis LeVert.
Okay.
So like like I said, I'm obviously not going to put too much into it because it's been 2 games,
Right.
but these guys are looking good. I mean, LaMelo's looking great. He's looking like an all-star, and
Yeah.
everybody else on the team is definitely doing their part as well too. Whether it's Miles Bridges, Gordon Hayward, Kelly Oubre, all those guys. But what else did you have?
I think we.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I think we talked about it in the running down all the teams in preseason. I like what they can do.
Right.
What their potential is. Their potential is LaMelo gets like 14 assists a game, throwing them to guys like Miles Bridges, Oubre, Gordon Hayward, but their consistency is always the issue because they were doing this stuff last season where Miles Bridges would have an awesome game, LaMelo would have close to a triple-double or whatever, and they would just defensively, like they're not great defensively. I don't expect that to improve.
Right.
So to answer the question, no, I don't think you underrate. I think we're going to have to wait and see. There's always, going off on sort of a different topic, there's always like that one team that comes out of the gates guns blazing. I think that was the Magic a couple seasons ago. They went like 10-2 or 8-2.
Something
and Aaron
like
Gordon made some comment about like, you better start respecting us. And then they finished like 14th or 13th in the East that year or whatever. That I'm not saying that'll be the Hornets, but might be.
Yeah, maybe. But what's your second topic?
Yeah. So this came about probably the day before opening day. Deandre Ayton not happy with the Suns front office right now. Not very happy. There's reports that he wanted a max deal, and not only did he want max money, that I think his agent called it Trae Young money. He wanted 5 years on the contract. There's been conflicting reports about this because obviously, front offices don't just publicly announce this information. I think the Suns front office said that they've never actually sat down with him yet and had contract talks. They've just asked for the max. Here's 2 different questions, and I think they are 2 different questions. One, is DeAndre Ayton a max player? Do you think? Is he worth max money? In a vacuum, is he worth max money?
Okay, so me personally,
yeah,
I don't think he is, but I would still give him the max.
That was my second question. If you're the Suns, do you give him the max? And I think the answer to that question is yes.
So I want to look at this from 2 different sides, from DeAndre Ayton's side, and I want to look at it from the Suns front office side.
Right.
So looking at it from the Suns front office side of things, he didn't have a great rookie season. His second season wasn't great either. I mean, he was suspended for 25 games. In his second season. I mean, he didn't really show that any glimpses of being a max guy until Chris Paul got into town. And we know Chris Paul's track record of making big men really, really good. He made DeAndre Jordan first team All-NBA.
First team All-NBA. That's right. Yeah.
Like, I mean, he made Clint Capella look so much better. And all of that. I mean, and definitely he had DeAndre Ayton out there looking like one of the best centers in the league.
Yeah.
But I don't think, just other than this season, he's shown glimpses of being a max guy. I mean, if Chris Paul wasn't in town, are we having this discussion? Like, I mean, I think Ayton just would have taken a lower contract.
I think
go ahead.
I was just going to say, if Chris Paul doesn't come to the Suns, they don't make the finals, and that's the discussion.
Right.
Right now, I think Ayton thinks that he has all the leverage.
And then the other thing for them too is, when it comes to the center position too, I mean, one, the position is dying. Two, I mean, you're seeing all these teams, I think every team has some variation of a small ball lineup. And clearly there's outliers, like you got to pay a guy like Jokic, you have to pay a guy like Embiid or anything like that. But the Bucks just won the championship with Brook Lopez as their center, who is making maybe like $10 million a year. And even the year before that, the Lakers center was
a good player too.
Right,
it's not
But even the year before that, it was what's his name? Who's the center for the Lakers? Dwight Howard for the Lakers.
Right.
And then
even the year before, less than that.
Right, and the year before that, it was Marc Gasol. And the Warriors never had a good center. I mean, they won 3 championships with
Andrew Bogut and Zaza Pachulia
and Kevon Looney.
Yeah.
To where if there's any position in the NBA that you don't really need to pay for your team to be successful, you know, you can get great value off of a guy on like a $8 to like $20 million. I mean, I know that's a big range, but I don't think you need to pay centers the max. Like I said, there's outliers clearly, you know, either Jokic or Embiid or guys like that, Karl Anthony Towns or whatever. But I don't know. I think the Suns are looking at it from that perspective, and then now looking at it from Deandre Ayton's perspective. He clearly was a big part of that Suns team that went to the finals, and I think that's his thought process on it. He's like, well, like we don't go to the finals if it wasn't for me being on this team. And the other thing too is the Suns drafted him number 1 overall a few years ago, to where like, isn't the hope that your number 1 overall pick is gonna become a max guy and gonna become like that caliber of player?
It's funny because the Suns drafted Deandre Ayton overall, which was widely reported as being a Robert Sarver pick. He sidestepped everyone in the front office and said, because he went to U of A, University of Arizona. Sarver did, as well as Ayton.
Yeah.
So he said, I'm going to go draft this kid over Luca Doncic. And now, a few years later, they say that he's not worthy of a max player.
Like, well,
it's like, why did you just draft Luca Doncic then and max him? Like, are you telling me Doncic isn't worthy of a max deal? Like, you drafted this guy first overall in the hopes that he would become pretty much the player that he is. Maybe they hoped for a little better, but like, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
No.
A couple other things that didn't make sense. So Zach Lowe reported that the Suns were okay with giving him max money, you know, every year. They weren't okay with giving him a 5-year deal. They wanted a 3-year deal, which is idiotic as hell because he's young. If you want him, you're going to want him for as long as possible. You're not going to cut him loose when he's 26 or whatever and still in his prime.
Exactly.
I mean, that didn't make any sense. I think the thought process for the Suns is they don't want to max him because he's probably not worth it. But their thinking is they look at the teams that could potentially max him because, you know, if Andre Ayton walks, he goes, is anyone else going to give him the max? I don't know. I think Detroit.
I think Charlotte. I think Charlotte would jump at the chance to give him a max 100% because a LaMelo DeAndre Ayton pick and roll would
they need
nasty.
Defense badly.
They need defense. He fits the timeline. So I think if Phoenix doesn't do it, a team like Charlotte, I think would jump at the chance.
Well, and that's the last thing. Like, so you're the Suns. You're not a small market by market size, but in the NBA, the Suns are a small market. If you're not like Brooklyn, New York, LA teams, Miami, maybe like Houston, they get free, like big market. I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you're not like those 5 or 6 teams, you're basically a small market, even though the Suns have like
Golden
the 4th
State.
biggest market. Golden State, they would be the last probably. Mm-hmm. But like, this is something that you kind of have to do. How are you going to replace DeAndre Ayton? If you can get like 85% of his production for less, you know, you find some big man off the street or something like that, that's awesome. But like, your chances of winning the title are already slim. They're going to go down.
Exactly.
Or if you don't match DeAndre Ayton. And once Chris Paul retires or whatever, which he will if they max DeAndre Ayton, he'll retire on his contract. Like, you're gonna need someone. It's not, you can't just go back to Booker and a bunch of bums again.
Well,
like Kyle Bridges is okay.
Because that's the thing is like that team's about to get really expensive. You know, like really expensive. You know, between Chris Paul on an overpay, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton if he's on a max. They just gave Mikal Bridges a pretty decent contract too.
4 years, $90 million, something like that. Yeah.
Landry Shamet just got paid. Cameron Payne they got Cameron Payne on a decent deal as well. But that's for closing thoughts. I don't think he's worth the max as a player, but if I'm Phoenix, I would still do it. And then moving on to,
I think you're right. Yeah.
Moving on to the second topic that I had for today. do you think the Clippers are done? Well, not necessarily done because it's the second game of the season, but do you think that this is what the Clippers are going to be for this season?
For the season?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant like as a franchise, like they're done. Like, I would never have Ballmer moving up to Seattle, but that's a different story. Were they ever not done? Like Kawhi was hurt, and I think I had them 8 or 9, which I think is still attainable.
I had them as my 8 seed, but the problem that with that is, remember when I gave my reasoning for putting them as the 8 seed, I said this is going to them still making the playoffs is going to take all of the players around Paul George to step up, and that's not happening.
No, I'm not.
Eric Bledsoe was shooting terribly.
Didn't like what I saw from. Who was supposed to step up, and I think we talked about this, but I know Tyronn Lue talked about this preseason. It was supposed to be Luke Kennard.
Oh, Luke Kennard. Yeah,
I was going to say Luke Kennard was supposed to step up and take some of that scoring load off of Paul George in Kawhi's absence, and he's just not that guy. I mean, he's just not good.
He had 10 points, but like. He didn't really do anything. Terrence Mann had 3 points.
Yeah,
in that game, and that's not good.
That 38-point game in the playoffs is looking like a peak that he will never ever retain. No. They're not a very fun team. Paul George balled out in a loss yesterday.
He had 41 points,
41 and 10. He's solid defensively. He's like his wingspan is nuts when he gets steals and stuff like that. But as a team, I don't have a lot of confidence in them. And I think a lot of NBA teams, when they go to the Clippers and play them, like they think like we beat these guys. Like any team NBA can say that.
Right. I don't think anybody's really like scared of him or anything right now.
Right.
Because if Paul George doesn't have a good game and either Reggie Jackson or Marcus Morris doesn't play well either, I mean, there's legit. I have no faith in this.
I have a chance.
Yeah,
and it's not like Memphis or world beaters either. But Ja Morant went for 28, including that game-winning pass to Jaren Jackson. That was nice. But it's like if they can't beat Memphis or whatever, it's like what are they going to do when they play goal? I mean, Curry already lit them up. He had 25 and a quarter or something. It didn't miss.
Right.
They have to play Golden State 3 more times. They have to play the Lakers 4 times.
Exactly.
The West is definitely not a joke. But
they're gonna run into the Suns a whole lot as well too.
The Jazz 4 times. Jokic is gonna destroy whatever big man they put out. So
right, and then I think Portland is a better team right now than them as well too.
I agree. Portland looks really good.
It's not looking good for the Clippers, and
they are done. I'm calling them done.
I think there's still. I don't think they go anywhere past the 8th seed just with this team playing like this. And the 8th seed's being generous. I mean, there's a chance that they slip in like barely making the play-in game, like 9-10 or whatever. But like I said, there's just no room for Paul George to have an off game. And the recipe for them winning is for Paul George to play like the way he did last night, for Reggie Jackson to play well, and for Marcus Morris to play well. If one of those two guys, either Reggie Jackson or Marcus Morris, doesn't play well, they're done.
They don't.
I don't have faith in. Terrence Mann hasn't taken the step that I expected him to take. Luke Kennard's been okay, I guess. Maybe Luke Kennard, essentially. Yeah. But not a lot of faith in this Clippers team. But moving on, then, what is your third topic that you had?
Yeah, so my 3-pointer is I didn't mean to double dip in Phoenix, but here we are back in Phoenix. There it was a mysterious. I found out about this because of what the Phoenix Suns official Twitter account tweeted last week. Mm-hmm. They tweeted a very weird black photo with white text about a inbound hit piece that was being manufactured by ESPN that is supposed to take Robert Sarver. This is me quoting what the Phoenix Suns press release said. It said, "It doesn't represent at all the Robert Sarver I've worked alongside for 15 years. He's not a racist and he's not a sexist." Again, no one has claimed anything yet. There's been nothing that has come out, but they come out and say he's not a racist and he's not a sexist. I will also say that reporter in this instance has shown a reckless disregard for the truth. He has harassed employees, former employees, and family members, used truths, half-truths, and rumors to manufacture a story in which he's heavily invested, and then perpetuate a completely false narrative within the sports industry to back it up. So in addition to some people in the Suns organization, former Suns GM Ryan McDonough was apparently giving statements in this article. Former coach Earl Watson, who's famous for giving up like 50-point games, like in back-to-back games when he was the coach. Earl Watson is quoted in this article, but it's all sort of weird and mysterious because it hasn't come out yet.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that they, I think that was Phoenix's attempt to kind of like control the narrative to where like just get ahead of it. They're like, okay, like we know that this exists. I mean, clearly something happened, you're not going to just come out and say these things unless you know something's coming.
Yeah.
So I think that, like I said, that was their attempt to control the narrative and just beat the story. Just say it first before anybody else does. To where
it would be really funny if ESPN. It'd be really funny if ESPN didn't release an article and the Suns just came out and said like, Robert Sarver's not racist, he's not sexist, he doesn't harass his employees. Like,
because when I saw that, I was just like, all right, like where is this coming from? Like what happened? Like I was trying to find something.
And
but
Robert, switching to Robert Sarver, like doesn't have the best reputation in the NBA with front office. In the Phoenix community, there was that famous video of the old woman a couple years back saying that Robert Sarver was like uptight and cheap. Like some 90-year-old woman called him out and said like some weird joke about like his like ass is so tight that he like shits diamonds or something like that. There was some weird quote she said, but he's so uptight that like he does some weird shit with his ass or something. I don't know. but like, I'll link I'll put in the video right after this.
Mr. Sarver has done nothing to improve this team in the 14 years he's owned it. He's never funded or bought, paid for 2 or 3 key players, which make any sports team, professional sports team, successful or on the road to success. He's so tight, he squeaks when he walks. And you have been negotiating with this kind of person? Shame on each and all of you. And upon you, Ed, I thought your principles were higher and better than this. We are not in the business of paying taxes to support private enterprise, and especially not an entertainment enterprise. They can support themselves or fail on their own lack of diligence.
But Suns fans don't like Robert Sarver because, again, going back to the Ayton thing, notoriously cheap, was famous for limiting Steve Nash in his prime by not building.
I was gonna say him going cheap. It doesn't just start with DeAndre Ayton. It goes back to that Phoenix Suns team.
Yeah, so
he got cheap at the wrong time. If you have a back-to-back MVP like that and a team that was making solid runs in the playoffs, like you can't. Like I don't.
You gotta pay.
You gotta pay. Yeah, exactly. Like you're gonna
at, like Joe Lacob.
And then look at the best teams. Look at all the top teams in the NBA over the last few years. You're gonna go and you're gonna dip into the luxury tax, and I think he has a fear of that or something. But
it's like I think I think Suns fans, like Clippers fans, when Ballmer got banned for life, I think Suns fans are kind of hoping that Robert Sarver gets banned for life. So that they can get a new owner, because
I know nothing about him really as a guy. Do I know anything about him being racist or sexist or whatever? No, I've never heard any reports until any of this happened. Right. I just don't think he's a good owner, like period.
No, I think he's a terrible owner. I think there's only 2 owners in the NBA, and it's James Dolan, number 1.
Yeah,
because he's had 20 plus years of just not only incompetence but like
gross incompetence,
misconduct, just horrible. And then Tillman Fertitta, in his brief stint as an NBA owner, has been one of the worst owners that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
He tried to get like PPP loans during COVID for the Rockets. Like
Jesus.
He's just like he was like laying off employees left and right, and he didn't want to trade with Daryl Morey during the whole Harden saga.
Right.
He sucks. He's terrible. But I think Suns fans would rejoice if Robert Sarver got taken down. But will he? Will this piece even come out? Nobody knows. Really mysterious.
I have no idea because still I have yet. Because I mean, going to a different league like with John Gruden, like there was specific, quotes and like instances and like all that stuff that they brought up. And I mean, I've heard nothing with Sarver yet, so
not yet. No,
I don't know, but I feel like it's coming. And like I said, Phoenix was just trying to beat them to it. And moving on to my third and final 3-pointer for today, I think this is Ja Morant's All-Star season. He has, I mean, and even just going back to the game last night, Memphis's starters in particular played great. D'Anthony Melton had 22 points, Steven Adams had 17, Desmond Bane had 19, Triple J had 22, and of course Ja had 28. Like I said, I think this is Ja's season to become an all-star, and this team for the next few years is going to be a mainstay in the playoffs. I don't see them if they keep running with the same unit. I don't see them missing the playoffs for that. It's going to be like that grit and grind Memphis team, to where we always knew we would see them in the playoffs. Clearly, I mean, they would never really were a serious threat or anything like that, but they're going to be a constant team in the playoffs, and one that you don't necessarily want to run into, as well too. I think this team, just with John as back, could be a dangerous, 8 seed, 7 seed, anything like that. Their bench did absolutely nothing for them, but I still think that there's a move potentially to be made for a guy like I really want Terrence Ross on this team. I say Terrence Ross or Eric Gordon, I think would be the perfect offensive punch off that bench, because I want to say I think Brandon Clark maybe had like 3 points or something, and it just the entire bench really did nothing for this team. The starters all played fantastic, but they need that guy off the bench, that can really just check in and just be, a flamethrower off of there. And I think Terrence Ross is that guy, and I think there could be, you move Tyus Jones and maybe a young player and a pick or so to bring in a guy like Terrence Ross or Eric Gordon. But what do you think about this Memphis team just based off of these first two? And then Ja had 37 in the first game too.
In the first game, yeah. I had them the 7th seed. So Paul George had a quote after the game. He compared Ja Morant to a young D Rose.
That's what I've been seeing on Twitter too, and that was his comparison going into him getting drafted. People were saying he's similar to like a Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook type guy, and just how athletic he is. But I'm definitely seeing
I think Morant is a little craftier passing the ball. I don't think D Rose was ever really looking to pass as a point guard. He was never a big assist guy. He could pick for himself, but it was just off the space he created because his handle was insane and he was explosive. That was the thing that Paul George said. He said he's just explosive. He's explosive. The direction he wants to go. He wants to go left. He's electrifying. So and he's right. I mean, Morant is pretty crazy. You see on that last possession when Morant had the ball, how much attention he got. The defense closed in on him, and that's the key to basketball. That's why Steph Curry is so good and makes his teammates better, because they close in on Ja, gets other guys wide open.
Exactly. Yeah, because if you surround him with those shooters that he does have on that team, guys like Dylan Brooks or anybody like that. That team is, like I said, they're going to be a mainstay in the playoffs for, I think, the better part of the next decade.
I think so. I compare them to the Hawks, to be honest. I think the layouts, they're similar in that the Hawks might not have the best team in the conference, but they're always going to be up there. They have the point guard forward duo, Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson, Trae Young, John Collins. I think Trae Young and John Collins are both better than Ja and Jaren Jackson, respectively. What they're missing is some rim protection that I don't think Steven Adams quite gives them.
Not at this point in his career.
Yeah.
No.
And I think they're like one or two pieces away from being that mainstay. Right now, as it stands, I see them as a team kind of like Portland, where they're always going to be on the border of like 8th, 9th, 7th seed.
Right.
Like always going to be fighting to get into the playoffs. I think if they get another piece that's super solid, then they'll be that mainstay that you were talking about.
Is that somebody that they have to draft, or do you think guys are going to want to be like, I kind of like what's going on in Memphis right now between Ja and because I mean it was similar, just bringing it back to Derrick Rose, to where Derrick Rose was really close to bringing LeBron James and Dwayne Wade into town. Because they're like, hey, we see a young point guard right there that's going to be good for a long time. And
who's the biggest free agent Memphis has ever gotten? Free agent. Zebo? Did they trade for him, or did they get him in free agency?
I really don't remember.
I don't either.
Maybe
like they haven't been obviously a premier destination. It's kind of hard to be consistently attract free agents if you're not one of those six big markets. But drafting a guy, I don't see them drafting a guy that they'd have to get super lucky to draft a guy that would get minutes like now,
right?
And contribute significantly where they can be a mainstay in the playoffs. But it's not out of the realm of possibility for them to acquire someone in a trade. They think about like the Hawks before Clint Capella. They were a good team. They pick up Clint Capella for dirt cheap. I think it was that Robert Covington deal from Houston. And Clint Capella is really, really damn good. Rebounding, defensively, he's a lob threat, and it just boosted their ceiling up so much of what the Hawks could do. The Grizzlies need to look for a guy like that, I'd say. Who that is, I have no earthly idea, but
yeah, I mean, I feel like part of them is kind of thinking that Zaire Williams might be that guy, to where, and that was why they moved Jonas Valanciunas, and they moved up in the draft and all that. I like him. Is he ready to be that guy right now? Probably not.
No.
I think maybe over the next few years, I would definitely think so. And moving on then to the part of the show where, like we said, these are just a few blurbs throughout the week that weren't worthy of an entire story of us to talk about, but just give me just a few of the miscellaneous things you had.
Start us off with quite possible favorite NBA-related video in the probably ever. So Side Talk on YouTube and Side Talk NYC on Twitter released a video of just interviewing random Knicks fans outside of the Garden when they beat Boston in double OT. And I'll play the video right after this.
Double fucking overtime! What the fuck, baby? New York is fucking back!
Knicks are here, baby! The Knicks are fucking here, baby!
Fresh out the Garden, baby! We're taking it all the way!
We had de Blasio, we had Cuomo, it was rough shit, but we have the Knicks! That's New York! Knicks run New York City!
Bing bong! Tell me a little something, KD. Don't you regret not coming to the Knicks? Don't you regret not coming to the Knicks? Let's go Knicks! Let's go Knicks! Let's go Knicks! Let's go Knicks! Real talk, I'm from New York, and you know what? Tom Brady's a fucking bitch. Fuck Tom Brady, yo. Fuck Tom Brady.
Where the bread at, Tom Brady? I need some bread, nigga. He owe me.
Fuck Boston.
Yo, you thought Trae Young was still good? He still ain't good at Dyke, man. You're smoking on that Boston pack tonight, you heard?
Fuck Trae Young! Fuck Trae Young! Fuck Trae Young! Fuck Trae Young!
Yeah, that was insane. You have guys just mobbing each other. You have fuck Tom chants for no reason. You have Jesus and Miro running around. Like, you have just New York, the most New York video I've ever seen, and just that energy surrounding New York City is so good for basketball.
I love it. Like, just going back to games 1 and 2 in New York last year, just seeing the Garden like that, just it just made me really excited. You know,
the Mecca.
Yeah, exactly. And I love watching the Knicks be good, because they haven't been good our entire life. I mean, there was those few years, you know, with that team that was, I believe it was it Derek Fisher? No, it wasn't Derek Fisher on that team. I don't remember who was
coaching.
Running point.
Running point. What do you mean, like 2013?
Yeah.
It was like Jason Kidd was on that team.
And like Raymond Felton?
I think Derek Fisher was on that team.
Yeah,
or was he on the
I
Thunder?
believe so. He was on the Thunder later on too. My timelines might be messed up, but
Raymond
I mean, like
Felton.
Jeremy Lin, when Jeremy Lin was on that team.
Steve Novak was on that team.
Steve Novak, J.R. Smith, Iman Shumpert, Stoudemire, Tyson Chandler.
Yeah,
that was what an era that was. I
mean,
that was one
was it Mike Woodson or Keith Smart coaching? Mike Woodson?
I don't remember.
One of those two. But
yeah, what an era that was. That was one of the most exciting 40-win teams.
And then they were a complete fluke.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, 100%. But no, I think it's great for basketball. Like seeing that, like I said, is the most New York Knicks thing you could have seen. And even like Evan Fournier, he quoted the video and he was just like, "What did I get myself into?" Like coming here.
So another thing, CP3, first player ever to record 20,000 career points and 10,000 career assists. What do you have to say about that?
It's just, I mean,
he's good. Yeah.
He's good. Yeah, no, Chris Paul. Chris Paul.
You that he was the only player to do this? It kind of surprised me a little bit. I was going to think maybe Magic if he played a little longer.
I thought maybe even LeBron would be pretty close to that right now.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah.
I don't know where LeBron sits at all-time assists,
maybe.
but
Steve Nash.
Because I remember, so that reminds me, it was Chris Paul and Melo were, I believe, I don't know if it was on a podcast or something like that, but they were talking about how Stockton has what I believe it's 15,000 career assists.
I think it's 14-something, 14.8, something like that. Yeah,
14 something. And Chris Paul was like, yeah, he was like, I have like 10,000 something assists because he was talking about LeBron wants to break Stockton's all-time assist record.
Not gonna happen.
And he was saying that he was like, right, yeah, exactly. So he was saying that like he was like, yeah, he's like, I have 10,000 assists. He's like, and I've been playing for 15 years.
Yeah.
And like LeBron, he was like, I know he wants to play with Bronny, like with his kid, but he was like, if he wants to break Stockton's record, he's like, he's gonna have to worry about playing with Zuri.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like it would take him that long. Like, all right. And then one of the miscellaneous topics that I brought into, it's kind of playing off of one of your main topics then too. Do you think Deandre Ayton had anything to do with the Robert Sarver stuff getting like that? Because with the John Gruden stuff, whenever I heard all of that, in my head, I thought somebody wanted him out.
Yeah.
Like for the way that it came out years later, like somebody wanted him out, definitely. Like there's no way. Like, they knew about that stuff. Like there's no way. So when it comes to the Ayton and Robert Sarver stuff, do you think that just a result of, I mean, I'm just going based mostly off the memes. Like those were killing.
You think Ayton gave Robert Sarver an offer he couldn't refuse? Godfather, and he said, if you don't want to give me the max contract, the next owner will.
Oh yeah, no, pretty much. I mean, maybe and like I said, I'm more going just based off of the memes and all that stuff. But,
I heard a rumor that DeAndre Ayton sent Robert Sarver a text saying, if you're not going to give me a max contract, is your widow. So it's just a rumor I heard, though. It's just a rumor. Yeah,
no, maybe he godfathered him and was like, well, I remember you sent this out in an email, and it'd be a shame if it should be a shame, because that's what I'm thinking. For that stuff to come out like that, I think somebody on the inside was like, mentioned something, and then that's why Phoenix did that whole weird kind of press release type thing and
trying to get in front of it.
Right. So I don't know. Do I think he did it? I mean, probably not. But just going based off of the memes and all the talk on Twitter. Yeah. And then another little topic that I picked right here too. Could this be Tyler Hero's breakout season?
I mean, people are saying this, that he's breaking out or whatever. Didn't he break out like 2 seasons ago? Like,
well, but
as
he
a rookie?
also didn't have a good sophomore season.
I disagree. I think he did. He averaged 15 points a game. He shot 40% from three. Like, he wasn't bad.
But I think he became very overrated after the bubble because I'm just going based off of the chance that Miami had to trade for James Harden. And they said, we don't want to give up Tyler Hero. I was like, when did Tyler Hero become the main piece of a James Harden trade?
I blame Jack Harlow for that.
Yeah,
overrated
probably.
Tyler Hero.
I think the narrative. So his work. I mean, he had a good showing in the bubble and all of that, to where like I think a young player like him, the bubble was kind of I knew that young players like that were going to thrive well because some of the older guys, like a LeBron or anybody else that was there, you're away from your family, like it's probably
they
your
have their
kids, your wife, all that
routines
stuff
that they've had their whole career, stuff like that. Yeah.
It's probably not easy, but for a young guy like Tyler Hero or any of the other rookies or young
Tyler
players,
Hero, like you just removed from college and AAU, where you're in a hotel room playing basketball like all the time.
Exactly, it probably just felt like a long AAU tournament where you go play. You play basketball all day. You go to practice. You play your game or whatever, and then you go back to your hotel room and just fucking play PlayStation or just talk to your Instagram models or whatever. It was probably great for those guys. Like I said, it probably did just feel like another year at Kentucky or just like a long AAU tournament where he was used to. But these guys, like I said, that have families that are a little older, stuff like that probably wasn't as easy. So the bubble was kind of beneficial to people like that. And Tyler Hero did play great. He played well in the playoffs, finals, all of that. But then
is he on the come up? I think so.
I definitely think so too.
Yeah.
Just based off of I don't want to put too much into preseason, but he was great in preseason. And I want to say within these first 2 games, he's averaging 28. And he looked like, in the Heat's last game, he looked like the best player on the floor.
Yeah, he shoots. He already has in the gym range. He's a scoring machine. That's all he does. He goes out there and they tell him to score a shit ton of points, and he scores a shit ton of points.
Because the way that I look at it in the NBA, I think by your 3rd season, we know what you're going to be. So
with some exceptions, yeah.
Well, with some exceptions. I mean, there's some late bloomers. a guy like a Julius Randle, Kyle Lowry, anything like that. But I'd say for the most part, we know what you're going to be by your 3rd season.
Yeah.
And this is Ja's 3rd season. And like I said, I think he's going to be an all-star. And I think he's going to be the focal point of a team that's going to consistently be in the playoffs to where now this is a season do we look at Tyler Hero as like a all-star fringe all-star guy or just a good 6-man off the bench?
Well, he'll start in his career. If he's the 6-man for this Heat team, which I guess he will be, he'll be one of the absolute better ones. But I don't know. I see him as what's a good comparison?
I heard a Sam Cassell comparison.
I don't think that's a good one, but I mean, sure, maybe, but I see him as maybe I don't know if this is a great comparison, but for lack of a better comparison, Eric Gordon in his prime would just start games and just shoot the lights out, just shoot all the time, and he averaged 20 a game.
Eric Gordon on those Pelicans teams.
Yeah, maybe a little more versatile version of that, which is a great player. That's close to a max level player.
And then I said, fringe kind of all-star guy. But I mean, I definitely think by your 3rd season we know what kind of player you're going to be. Are you going to be a superstar? Are you going to be
he's got the
all-star
confidence,
guy type of guy? He has the confidence, for sure.
Confident and player in the NBA.
But we could be poised for a Tyler Hero breakout season. And did you have any other topics too?
Yeah, I had 2 small ones before we go into the 75. Jonas Valanciunas got extended, and the only thing I think significant about that is that he got extended before even playing a game on the Pelicans, which is a really weird move. And I think it's a piece of the dominoes, maybe not domino effect, but it's one of the straws that will break the camel's back. That is David Griffin's position as the GM of the Pelicans, because he's been screwing up ever since he drafted Zion. Got lucky drafting Zion. They were the 8th best odds, and they lucked into him.
And there's the conspiracies of that being rigged and all of that, but
we rigged it. I went to that lottery.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think you did. You told me that.
But I don't know. It's just not a good look for David Griffin. And then I stumbled upon this next thing in I don't even know what game it was. It was the Clippers first. Who did they play the first game?
The Warriors.
Right. It was Clippers Warriors. So I got a notification from the NBA app saying you can watch this 4th quarter for free now. And I was like, cool. Cause I didn't get the game. Mm-hmm. And so I log on to I go into the NBA app, and they give you 4 different camera angles to watch the game, but none of them are good. They give you it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my whole life. They give you 2 camera angles for either basket. So it's literally when dunks on the Phantom cam where this guy's coming it's literally the camera above the shot clock. You can watch from there. And it doesn't move either. Yeah. So you just see 60% of the court on either side. And then the other two angles were home and away. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll get the home broadcast, the away broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
No. So the Clippers were – who was home that game? Was it the Warriors?
I believe so.
Okay, so
yeah,
the
it was the Warriors.
The Warriors were home. I clicked on the home broadcast, and it was just a guy with a camera following around, for some reason, Juan Toscano-Anderson around the court. Like, it was – I'm like, okay, are they going to show other players? It was literally just Juan Toscano-Anderson. Like, he was, like, standing in the corner for, like, the whole possession.
Yeah.
They did not move off of him. They just showed him, and I'm like, okay, let's go to the away broadcast. It was just a guy following Paul George around with a camera.
Yeah.
No matter what he did, like, he would set screens and then stand in the corner for 30 seconds and, like, just, like that was it. Like, that it was the weirdest thing. Like, it'd be awesome if you were scouting Paul George for, like, as an NBA scout, but I couldn't tell what the hell was going on because if it wasn't Paul George related, it was just, like, out of my view. Like, it was zoomed in on Paul. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my whole life.
Well, so now I know to never check out one of those broadcasts.
You should try it out. If you're listening to this, try it out. It's just, like, bizarre. You feel like you're in the Twilight Zone. Like, it's just the weirdest way to experience a game. And they pitched it. It was as if, like, they were doing me a favor. Like, oh, tune in whole fourth quarter. But it's, like, one player at a time.
Mm-hmm. And then
bizarre.
My last topic as well, too, just quick blurb. This is just going off of the prediction that I had before the season started. I said if Minnesota was healthy, they were going to be good. And Cat D'Lo and Anthony Edwards have looked great.
Undefeated.
These past two games. Yeah, they're undefeated. Yeah, exactly. And then I think in the first game, Edwards had, I want to say, close to 30 points, and same thing with Cat and same thing with D'Lo. So those three all showed out.
Game.
I mean, they're probably going to it's the Timberwolves, so I don't expect this the entire season. But like I said, if this team is healthy, I think they might be pretty solid.
As long as they wear those Seattle Seahawk jerseys, they're in good shape. Yeah, the Sharpies.
For sure.
Right,
and then
you want to go into 75?
Yeah, so the NBA 75th anniversary is this season, and they released a team of the 75 best players in the NBA's history. Best, most influential, all of that. The list goes on and on of these 75 players. And there are a few notable guys that were left off of this list, a few that I had some serious problems with, and a few that I saw other people, mentioning on Twitter to where I felt a little indifferent about or whatever like that. But who are some of the guys that you had on the snubs list?
Well, before we get into our snubs, which is our top 10 list, we should probably just mention a few guys that are on the list and should be taken off. Because if we're mentioning who got snubbed, you have to mention who you'd replace them with, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
I just looking at some guys. The quick and easy answer. There's two. In general, it's the guys, the guys whose pictures are in black and white. The Dave DeBuschers, the Bill Sharmans, the Dolph Shazes. Not like those guys aren't important. They pioneered the league. You have to respect them because it's not like, if you were like George Mikan and you won 3 rings and you won MVPs and stuff like that, but you don't count because like the league was shit. Like what more could you have done?
We love George Mikan.
We do. Yeah.
He's a DePaul legend, probably the best NBA player in our school's history.
Probably Mark Aguirre.
Mark Aguirre, yeah. But also George Mikan played in like the 1940s. So.
40s, yeah. It's funny because you have to get into criteria as well. So there were some guys that made the list that based off of rings and accolades and stuff like that. Dennis Rodman made the list, which I'm not a huge fan of because is Dennis Rodman the top 75 most talented guy in NBA history? Definitely not.
Definitely
no
not.
Way.
No, but
if he didn't win a ring, he wouldn't be close to this list. But he's on the list.
He has 5 of them.
Yeah, and for from 2 different teams. But I mean, the criteria is all over the board. Like if Rodman gets in, then like Ben Wallace should get in. I'm sort of overstepping my boundaries. He made my list, but. The criteria is really different. If you're not counting guys that got their career taken away by injury, like Bill Walton made the list.
Right.
And that's sort of an exception to that rule. So and then obviously you have the current guys. Damian Lillard made this list. Anthony Davis, made this list. Kawhi Leonard made this list. I think Kawhi deserves it more than those other guys. But it's just curious how recency bias as well as weird criteria got into it. I know according to the people who voted, mostly press and stuff like that, the NBA instructed them to just fill it out however they saw fit. 75 guys, not even like the original 50 from the 1996 team. They just gave them an empty ballot, 75 guys, which they fucked up too because there's 76 guys on this team. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't see that.
There are 76 players on this 75 team because there was a tie. I don't know who tied, but there are 76 players on the top 75 lists. So
interesting.
Yeah,
like I said, there's a couple guys on this team that I mean, the guys from the black and white era, I clearly didn't watch them play, and then going back,
no one did.
It's nothing to be super interested about because you're not going to tell me Dave DeBusschere is a better basketball player than like Kyrie Irving
or Hal Greer or
right,
Bill Sharman, but you have to respect them in a way.
Because this was made by the NBA, to where I think that they think people would be annoyed if it was just more modern players and they didn't show respect to these guys from like the 1950s.
You got to show them respect. They did pioneer the game of basketball, and it goes to the whole argument. Like if you put Kyrie Irving, this is like getting into crazy hypotheticals, but if you put Kyrie Irving in a time machine as like a baby in the 40s or whatever, and he grew up wearing Converses, like smoking in between the breaks, stuff like that, would Kyrie Irving? He obviously wouldn't be Kyrie Irving. He'd be like a Hal Greer. Basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's a really tough argument. Obviously, players nowadays are more skilled. If you go back and look at Dolph Shay's highlights, it's like, it looks like an old guy at the Y that has.
It was that video I sent you on Twitter. It was like, who you guys got, Dolph Shays or Kyrie Irving?
Yeah, like Dolph Shays had that jumper though. He had that. He did. Jimbo.
And like you told me, he was like the original kind of like. Stretch five.
Which you got to give him respect, but is he better than Dwight Howard? Like,
no, absolutely
no. So with that being said, did you think? Well, who did besides those guys? Like, who do you think made the list that shouldn't have that you're going to replace with some of these guys? Like, do you think Dame deserved to make it?
No,
I don't either.
I don't think Dame deserved to make it. I think a few of the guys on my top 10 that I chose as well too could have maybe a better argument than Melo does to be on this list.
Yeah, Melo's
just going based off of, like I said, I mean, if it were up to me, I would take a bunch of the guys from the 40s off of here, but just going off of current stuff, I would take probably Melo off for a few of the guys that I picked on here too. There's another discussion I heard Anthony Davis was a little bit of a controversial one as well too, just based on some of the guys that I looked at on this list.
Davis is an awesome player. I think he's a top 10 power forward all time. Is that safe to say? Okay.
I would say it. Yeah, I don't think that's outlandish or anything like that.
So I saw, so like you go like Melo made the list, which like I think he deserves it. Top 10 in scoring all time, right? He's at 9 or something like that. But it goes back to criteria. Like, who's basically Melo, but just played in a different era was like Alex English.
Yes.
He had the most points scored in the 80s, more than Larry Bird, more than James Worthy, who made the list.
Johnson, all that.
Magic Johnson, more than Jordan, more than anyone. And he just played for a shitty Denver team that didn't do anything.
Yeah, that was kind of probably the like original Melo, yeah.
Yeah, basically, and he didn't.
And then the '90s Melo was Dominique Wilkins.
Pretty much, yeah. And it's another thing. Like, there's so much to talk about on this list because, like, Dominique Wilkins was when they made that top 50 list in 1996, didn't make the list. Was notably the one like odd guy out, the 51st guy, if you will, towards the end of his career. Kirk Goldsberry, who I really enjoy, NBA guy, former front office guy for the Spurs, said that it was interesting that Dominique Wilkins, 20 years after his career ended, when he didn't make the top 50 list, made the top 75 list. So, stuff like that.
Like what changed,
Right. It's like we already judged him and claimed he wasn't good enough to do that. So do you want to get into the top 10 list then?
Yeah. Let's get into the top 10. And I'm going to go into the player that I really had the most of a problem not being on this list.
I think we agree.
Dwight Howard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's just honestly just really blasphemous. If you have a guy like Damian Lillard on this team, or even Melo or anything like that. I mean, just with the resume that Dwight has, he is
defensively.
like legit. All of the God. He was the best center in the league for a good probably 6-year stretch.
Maybe even more. He brought a team to the finals, something Dame hasn't come close to doing. Not only was he a defensive juggernaut, athletically, he was insane. Offensively, he had like a legit rim runner game. He averaged on his run to the finals, I think he averaged 20 a game, 14 rebounds, something crazy.
And there was a few seasons that he ended top 3 in MVP voting, and I think Dame's maybe done that once, maybe.
I don't think he has done it once.
No. And then, I said, I mean, Dwight was the best center in the league for a while. Dame's never been the best anything in the league at one point, so.
That was my number one as well.
That's the one that I had the most problem with. Just his resume is, he had, like I said, multiple All-Stars, multiple first-team multiple All-NBA teams, multiple defensive teams, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. I really don't know what went into that decision. He's been majorly disrespected over the last few years. I mean, I know he jumped from team to team, had a little bit of a career resurgence in LA, but I definitely don't think we can ignore what Dwight did early on in those Magic years.
Number 2, I had a guy who is perennially overlooked, mainly because of his lack of playoff success, Trace McGrady.
I disagree.
Really? Okay.
I think
he has a better argument than Lillard. I think he has a better argument than maybe Davis. I
have him on my top 10. He was one of my favorite players growing up as well too. But I think maturing is realizing that he's very overrated. I think personally. For his
era, I think he was exactly what that era wanted of ISO scoring. Because that era was ISO heavy, where you got one guy like Kobe, T-Mac, AI, and you just spread everyone out and just let them go to work. I think he boded well for that era. He was a 6'8" shooting guard, crazy mobility. Obviously, that 13 points in 35 seconds helps his case because that's one of the most historically crazy moments in NBA history. But he didn't win a whole lot.
I think he has a lot of nostalgia bias. And a lot of people, the other argument that I hear too is everyone is like, so you know how SportsCenter recycles all of their same discussions for their Instagram posts, and one of them is like, oh, who would have had the best career if they were never injured? And T-Mac is always in that discussion. He wasn't hurt as much as people think he was. He had 8 seasons playing over
Grant
60.
Hill or something, or Penny Hardaway, or
Derrick Rose.
Brandon Roy,
So he wasn't as injured as everybody kind of makes it out to be. I went to go look at his game log, and he had, I want to say, 8 seasons playing over 60 games.
Really good.
I mean, that sounds pretty healthy to me. I mean, it was more in the twilight of his career, but he was kind of number 2. Oh wait, I'm not done. I'm not done on my T-Mac thing.
Okay.
Never made it out of the first round. Did I love watching him play as a kid? Of course. He had some super iconic moments, but I'm okay with him not being on the list, and I don't think he has that I wouldn't put him over Dame, and I wouldn't put him over Anthony Davis either. I don't think, but I know the old heads and people are gonna get at me on that, but no, I'm keeping T-Mac off of this.
I'd say also I didn't have a problem with the list in general. You can make a case for Dame and Davis. It's not like they were Dwight Howard was one of the only ones that I was like, all right, what the hell? But the 10 guys that I have in this list, the 9 guys other than Dwight Howard, it's they're pretty interchangeable with a lot of these guys. And again, it goes back to criteria. What do you value? Do you value rings? Do you value talent? How do you measure talent?
Exactly.
All that stuff. So I didn't have a I thought they did a pretty good job with the list. And it's the whole point is to get up in arms, right? One's
exactly. You're not gonna make everybody happy.
Yeah, but I just wanted to preface that before we go on the list. But who'd you have at number 2?
Tony Parker.
That was my number 3.
I don't understand that. And then I'm sorry, Damian Lillard. People are gonna think we have a problem with Damian Lillard or something, but just basing it off of modern players right now too. I don't know what case Damian Lillard has to be better all time than Tony Parker.
I thought he's a better scorer by a lot.
He's a better scorer, and he was. I mean, there was never a point where Tony Parker was the best player on that, that San Antonio.
Which is not a slight to him because he had Tim fucking Duncan on his team, but right. I think Tony Parker gets penalized. So if you look at Tony Parker's stats and you see he was never a big assist guy, however, you think about who he was assisting to. There was so many possessions with the Spurs would just dump it into the post and Tim Duncan would take 5 seconds to score. It's like, that's not an assist, but that's a pass from Tony Parker. He would set up guys. And that offense just wasn't geared for Tony Parker to have John Stockton numbers. He could. No. If Tony Parker was on I don't know, some shit team in the 2000s, like if he took Chris Paul's place on those New Orleans Hornets teams where he could just go off, he would have like Chris Paul numbers where he'd average like 25 and 10 or whatever, but he just wasn't in that position. So he substituted that by getting 4 rings. So
right. Yeah.
Fair trade-off.
No, I was going to say, just based off of, having 4 rings, and he has a finals MVP to his name as well.
07, I believe.
I thought it was 05. But
was it against the Cavs or the Pistons?
I don't actually remember.
Okay.
He has a Finals MVP though, to where Dame doesn't have
deservedly
that.
So.
Exactly. Anthony Davis doesn't have that, to where I really don't know what went into not putting Tony Parker on here, but
I see the argument. Tony Parker has never had to carry a team, so we don't know. Like we know, like if you put Tony Parker in Lillard's position, he doesn't go to the finals. He just doesn't. Like he's not going to be that much better than Dame, where he's like carrying a team. If you put him on the Pelicans teams instead of Anthony Davis, those teams were bad a lot of the times. Yeah. So like he's not doing anything there. And if you put Dame on the Spurs instead of Tony Parker, they win about the same amount.
Exactly. So and then the next player I had on my list then here too is Pau Gasol.
He was my 5th option. I had maybe getting ahead of myself, but these guys are all pretty much interchangeable for me. I had Ray Allen.
I thought Ray Allen is on the list.
Is he?
Literally, he's at the list I'm looking at. He's right under Kareem.
Oh, he is on the list. Right, okay.
Yeah.
I missed him then.
Oops. But
that was a good call by them then. That's just proves that we're on the same page.
Right. And then the thing with Pau, I really don't get that because he really is like a beloved NBA player too, to where he gets a lot of love. Yeah, exactly. So just based off of that, I don't know what reason there was to keep him off of that team. He has his Rookie of the Year. He was the best player on those Memphis teams that made the playoffs a few times or anything like that. And he was
they were
Kobe. Exactly. He has 2 championships.
He'll make the Hall of Fame.
Was Kobe's sidekick. Yeah, he's 100% going to make the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Had a decent career as well, even after leaving that Lakers team. He was okay on the Bulls.
Okay, yeah.
He was solid on the Spurs for that short bit of time that he was there too. I really don't know what reason there was to keep Pau Gasol off of that, because there is an argument to be had as well too that Pau could maybe make it over Anthony Davis just based off of having that one more championship. Pau was never it was similar to where they were both the best player on teams that didn't really do a whole lot.
And talent-wise, like you could argue Anthony Davis just because defensively he was a lot better than Pau.
Anthony Davis is a better player than Pau Gasol, but if again, we're going based off resumes, which I feel like a lot of this is going into
make sense to include AD over Pau. Yeah. So
definitely.
Apologies to Ray Allen. He did in fact make the list.
Right.
I don't know. I missed that, but I guess he deserves it.
Another one I had to, and mine isn't really going in any kind of order. I'm just naming players off.
Once you get to this point, I'd say I have 2 guys at the end that are sort of edgy picks. Maybe.
Mine too. Yeah, mine too.
Okay.
One of mine is definitely edgy. My next player that I had on this list is Kyrie Irving.
I did not have Kyrie on my list. I think he was like my odd man out.
Really?
He would have been my 11th. I guess he would be my 10th because Ray Allen did make the list.
Yeah.
So.
I think it could be just based off of the shot and being the second best player on a team that went to what did Kyrie go to the finals 3 times? He was on 3 of those teams.
Twice, I thought.
15, 16, 17.
Oh, you're right. I'm blanking. Yeah, you're right. He wasn't on that last team, but he was on the 15 team that lost. You're right.
Right, and then hitting a huge shot, being part of one of the what I think is going to go down as one of the most iconic moments in NBA history. Going head to out, almost some could say outplaying Steph in that series as well too. Just being a huge part of that comeback and what I think is the best finals win in NBA history. I definitely, I mean, I'm not a Kyrie guy. I'm certainly at this point, I'm definitely not a Kyrie guy, but
I don't know if anyone is.
I think he has a better argument than Damian Lillard.
Resume for sure. They're about similar talent level. Talent, no doubt. He is one of the best handles in NBA history, if not the best.
Exactly.
You have to weigh what he did in Boston, which was stink up the locker room and do nothing. You have to weigh what he's doing right now, which is making a big scene and not playing.
Do you think that had anything to do with it too? I mean, because I'm sure
100%.
the NBA.
If you look at guys voting in AD and Lillard as recency bias, then you have to be recently. Kyrie Irving's been a knucklehead. So
right, yeah. So I think that also probably played part of that. I'm sure all those guys that were making the list, their opinion on Kyrie isn't that high at this point, but I think he deserved a spot on this list. Moving on then to another guy as well. This is just basic. This is another player that I kind of put in the same category as T-Mac that has a lot of nostalgia bias. But I think just based off of longevity and where he ranks in, I want to say he's up there in most three-pointers made. He's definitely up there in most points made in his career too. It's Vince Carter.
Okay, he didn't make my list. Just because, longevity. He had that whole thing with Toronto that kind of left a sour taste in people's mouths. But in Toronto, he was, dominant.
Really he was dominant for a team that didn't really do all that much. But I think they had an Eastern Conference. They played. I think they went to the Eastern Conference Finals once. Maybe this is
with Toronto.
I think so. No, I'm wrong.
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so.
I don't think he ever made it out of the second round.
No.
Where like individual success, I mean, I think he deserves to be on this list just based off of longevity. But like I said, I think he's in the T-Mac position to where there's a lot of nostalgia bias around Vince Carter. And obviously, I loved watching Vince Carter as a kid. His dunks and all that stuff.
He made in Toronto. People forget that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
I have no problem with that.
Yeah, just based off of longevity, I think I'd have to include Vince Carter on here.
What are we at, 6? Was
Something
that your 6?
Like that.
I had so this again goes back to criteria. I was thinking, all right, if Dennis Rodman made the list, you know who has a good argument if Rodman made the list? I think Ben Wallace.
I have Ben Wallace.
Ben Wallace has a good argument. If Rodman gets in, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, shut down Shaq in a finals game or in the final series that made them win a title on a team that didn't have like a true star, like a superstar.
Right.
And he was one of the best defensive players, undersized. Like that has to factor in for Rodman.
Right.
Like,
that's what I'm saying. And I think it comes down to the rings thing as well too. I mean, Rodman has 5 of them, I believe, and Ben Wallace has 1, very close to getting a second one, but they lost to the Spurs in 7 games that next year. But no, I mean, I had Ben Wallace on mine too. Based off of what he did defensively, he's one of the best. I'd say I'd probably put him as the best defender of the between 2000 to 2010. I would say.
Him or Dwight, just based on the amount of Defensive Player of the Years that they've racked up.
Right.
Like, Dwight has how many? 3 or 4?
3.
3, and Ben Wallace has 4. So
between those
insanity.
two, they went 7 of the Defensive Players of the Year for that
nuts.
decade.
And to just ignore him is, I'm sure people voted for him, but he's always been. It took him a little bit to get into the Hall of Fame. I think it took him a few extra years.
I agree.
So number 7, I had Manu Ginobili.
I had Manu on my list as well too, but I took him out for Tony Parker.
Yeah, I don't mind not including Manu on the list at all. I think again, like Tony Parker, if he was starring on his team instead of coming off the bench, he would be a 20-ish point, like 22, 23 points a game guy or whatever.
Right.
He'd score a lot more than he did. And like coming off the bench, people might take that. I just hope people don't look back and see like, oh, he came off the bench, like he's trash. Like
No.
he's basically like a John Havlicek, where it just sort of called for that, where he was like one of the best players on the team that happened to come off the bench just
exactly, yeah. And he's going to be remembered as one of the best six men ever. But he was a lot more than just that.
Yeah,
that's the thing. And he has 4 championships?
I think it is 4 because they drafted him, and neither of them were around for '99 when Tim Duncan was. They drafted him.
He doesn't have a Finals MVP, does he?
No, he doesn't.
Okay.
I think they drafted him in '01 when David Stern called him Emmanuel Ginobili, and no one else called him that ever again.
Yeah.
I think he's got 4, and he was obviously a big contributor in every single one.
Oh, he wasn't drafted in '01. He was drafted in '99.
After they won a title?
Right after they won it, yeah.
How about that for luck?
Yeah. No, right, exactly.
Yeah.
But they're definitely a guy that benefited from being teammates, with Tim Duncan and having Greg Popovich as your coach. But I mean, I definitely will listen to that argument as well too. Like I said, the last 3 guys that I have on this list are definitely being a little controversial.
I'm a little edgy with my last 3 as well. I bet we have at least one of the same players.
We'll see. The next guy I had was Klay Thompson.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought about it just because of how upset he was that he didn't make it. I didn't include him just because I think there's just no way he makes this list on talent alone.
No.
I don't think he's close either.
I think being looked at, he's going to go down as being remembered as the second best shooter ever. But I think part of it, like I said, I mean, Klay Thompson hasn't played a game since I was 22 and I'm almost 25. So I think that definitely had a part to play in that as well too. Yeah. But he's a 3-time champion, played a huge part on that team, and I think he's going to go down with a great resume.
Arguably the 4th best player for 2 of those championships. Arguably,
right. Yeah,
probably 3rd, but arguably 4th.
Mm-hmm. And just not a ton of. He doesn't have a whole lot of individual accolades. To where I think what went into this voting and people choosing this are like, oh well, he was just Steph's sidekick through it all. But like I said, I just don't think and I just don't think he has the individual accolades to really put him on that list. But he's a guy that I would just put in the discussion for it.
Well, and it's interesting because like Reggie Miller, you talked about like second best shooter ever. Reggie Miller is probably like definitely top 5 shooters. 100%. Like top maybe 3rd or 4th, and like he made it in just because he was basically the best player in his teams the entire time, and he could like create his own shot and like do a little more than Klay. But in terms of that's what I compare. Like if Klay was going to make the list, I would look at Reggie Miller and say like I'm basically Reggie on a good team.
You could look at Ray Allen too, though.
Yeah, you could. Same thing with Ray Allen. You could look at Ray Allen. I know Ray Allen had those years in Seattle where he was the best player on those teams and racked up points.
But they weren't doing anything.
But they weren't good, right? Yeah. Exactly. So,
I have 2 guys left. I have 2 guys left on my list because I had T-Mac, but I already discussed that.
Right. For my 8, I had Alonzo Mourning, but I don't have a lot to say about him. He was the 5th best big man in the '90s. No fault of his own.
Hold on, let me put this. Hakeem, David Robinson, Shaq, Patrick Ewing, Alonzo. Okay, that's fair.
You could argue he's 6th because of Dikembe.
I would take Alonzo Mourning. Just Alonzo Mourning is a lot better offensively than Dikembe, and then just being able to have similar production defensively. Yeah. I mean, no, I'd put Alonzo over Dikembe for sure. But okay, Alonzo Mourning, that's interesting. I think he was snubbed. Just going, I mean, I was 3 years old when this happened, but just going based off of, I think that should have been his MVP in '99.
Really?
Yes.
The lockout season.
Yes, the Heat were the 1 seed, and he was great. He was great defensively. He was the runner-up to Karl Malone.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just looking at Malone's numbers, he did Karl Malone things, and I think I want to say the Jazz weren't even the 1 seed in the West. It was the Spurs. So
I don't remember who.
I looked at this recently, but I think he was snubbed of an MVP in '99. I think he was in the voting as well in 2000 and 2001, and he was the best player on those late '90s, early 2000s Heat teams that were winning 60 games, that were making Eastern Conference Finals runs and all of that. So I actually do. I did not have Alonzo Mourning, but I do like that one, and I think if he did win that MVP, he would 100% be in that top 75.
Yeah, underrated for sure.
And my oh, go ahead.
So like again, do I have a problem with him not making it? No, like it's totally understandable.
And then just going based off of that MVP thing, just you're going to see that with my next two guys here. Next, I have Derrick Rose.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm excited that we don't have the last two sort of edgy kind of picks. I did not have Derrick Rose. I thought about it. I think it's interesting just because he's the only MVP you can argue that he doesn't have a case for the Hall of Fame. Like there's a legit argument both sides.
I know,
which is super interesting. Top 75, I mean, I really hate to say it. It makes me sad, but he just doesn't have the longevity.
No, I know.
He had that MVP season, and then like, you know,
he's gonna carve out because I think the end twilight of his career is he's gonna be remembered as one of the best six men in the league at this time. I mean, I love what he does off the bench. He's great on this Knicks team, but really the only part of my argument would be for the first half of his career. You know, Rookie of the Year, All Stars, and being the youngest MVP in history. Yeah, I mean that would be my argument, but it's not one that I feel super strong about.
Yeah,
you know.
You want to hear my ninth guy?
Yeah.
We might have similar players. I don't know. I'm expecting you to name this guy to be fun, but I think he has a legit case, and it's Luca Doncic. Luca Doncic has a legit case to be top 75, especially when you consider that in the 50 list in 96, Shaq was in his fourth season.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
He was in his fourth season, and they looked at him and said, well, he's probably the top 50 player already. You can do the same thing with Luca if you add 25 guys. Like, I think Luca's better than Ray Allen. He's better than Dame Lillard ever was. He's better than Anthony Davis. So why not?
He's better than I mean, obviously, I'm not going to talk about the 1940s guys and all that.
Reggie
I think
Miller.
he's better than Reggie Miller. He's better than
all the 1940s guys. Why not throw them in? Because you know they're not as good as him. Like
he's. I mean, his peak is going to be better than Melo.
Without a doubt, you can make an argument. He's like Steve Nash level. Like he's at an MVP level. Like
Dominique Wilkins, Gary Payton,
Russell Westbrook, Paul Pierce. He's better than Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, okay, but I don't want to say it.
Paul Pierce, he's better than Paul Pierce. He's about at that level. I'd say he's a little bit better.
Okay, that's definitely Clyde Drexler.
About at that level.
About at that level, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, I mean that's not one that I had. My other one is more my last one is more controversial.
Mine is as well.
I actually do. I don't mind that Luka one, just based off. I was going to mention that Shaq made it in his fourth season. It made it onto the top 50, and that was a closer list too. Like that was a tighter list. I mean, less players on it, but
would I put Luka on the list? No, just because he's so young, and it's like he'll have his time and place to be recognized. It's not now.
Yeah,
but like if you look at the criteria, like based on talent, he is a lot more talented than a lot of these guys on the list.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's hear the last one. Let's hear it.
I kind of want to hear yours because I think mine's more controversial.
Well, I have okay, I'll go. It's Nikola Jokic.
That's my last one too. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah,
that was my last one too.
I thought we had overlap.
And
won an MVP, incredible numbers. Like is already one of the best passers in the league. If not, like he has a case to be the best passer in the league. He scores like an animal. He rebounds. He's exciting to watch. He's already has the accolades. Like
best passing big man
ever.
And I think as we move into a new era of centers and how we view the center position, I think in 20 years they'll be like that Nikola Jokic was the kind of the blueprint for whatever the center position is going to become over the next few years.
Without
MVP,
a doubt.
There's only been 33 MVP people that have been awarded the MVP award in the NBA's history, and Nikola Jokic is one of them. And definitely,
he's just like such a unique talent. Like how many guys can do what he does in NBA history? The list is minuscule, and like
because that's why I think he has an argument for, just being a top 10 center already of all time.
Which is a tough list to crack.
And then just looking at the centers on here that are currently on the list, I think he will be better than Patrick Ewing.
Yeah, I think Patrick Ewing was generally overrated. I love Patrick Ewing, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Let me see what other guys on here.
I think he's a better Bill Walton, NBA wise.
Right.
He's basically Bill Walton. Bill Walton was like before before Jokic came along, the best passing big men were like Sabonis, Bill Walton, Chris Webber, and Jokic just laps all of them.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I think he's better than Jerry Lucas, better than Bob McAdoo, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
He's on the level of like, he's close to like David Robinson level, where he's just dominant MVP guy. Like he just scores a shit ton of points, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Exactly. And I'm kind of glad we agreed on that one, because I had this conversation with other people, and they definitely didn't see it from that. But like I said, just based off of there's only been 33
won the
MVP.
damn MVP. Like, right. I mean, that's and he's still going, and like,
he has potential to revolutionize the center position,
and like his MVP season was so unique and so dominant. Like compared to Derrick Rose, like I think Jokic's MVP was better than Derrick Rose's MVP season.
100%.
And like you just look at it objectively, like if Jokic's career ended today, and then you threw him back in time or whatever, and you were remembering Nikola Jokic, you'd see the guy who won MVP, who averaged a shit ton of points, who could pass like crazy, who could score a ton of points, who had like an unblockable.
Denver's winning.
Yeah, like there's no reason not to include him over a lot of these guys.
Right.
A lot of these guys on the list. So like Jokic definitely has the argument, especially right now, especially if they added Shaq in 1996. Like he has so much going for him, and he'll make when they do the top 100 in 25 years, I bet Jokic makes that list.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. I agree. But if we missed out on anybody on this list, if you guys had any other people that you wanted to include on this top 75, please drop it in the comments below.
And I bet we did miss some people.
I'm sure we missed some people as well too. All of that. So yeah, let us know in the comments. If
Craig
you guys,
Elo.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
if you guys enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to hit that thumbs up, subscribe, notifications, all of those YouTube things. It would be greatly appreciated. And let us know if you enjoy this new format. This is kind of going to be the way that we're running for the regular season. And we're going to switch it up a little bit as well, too, once college basketball rolls around, too.
Yeah.
If that's something you guys want to see.
Once college rolls around, we'll have College Corner. And depending on how much happens in college, we'll talk about that. We'll try to cover it a lot. I love watching college basketball. We both do.
Exactly.
And then, again, after this, expect a podcast coming out Wednesday night.
Yes, we will be back to cover all of because the games are actually starting in a few hours, so we're going to get a watch at those, see what key points we have between Sunday and Tuesday, and we'll cover all that on the Wednesday episode. But like I said, if you enjoy, do all those YouTube things, like, subscribe, and all of that, and we will be back on Wednesday with another episode. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will be back.